We can't gather in person this year, but we've adapted. The 2020 Milwaukee Film Festival brings the best in film from across the globe and around the corner. And this year, it's all virtual, so the films and events are coming directly to you. Join us for the 2020 Milwaukee Film Festival, October 15th through the 29th. More information is at mkefilm.org/MFF.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 13 of the 2020 Milwaukee Film Festival presented by Associated Bank. I'm Kara, the artistic director at Milwaukee Film, and this is the Nightcap, presented by the Yabuki Family Foundation. A few housekeeping and reminders before we get into the Q&As this evening. I want to remind you to cast your vote for the Alan H. Budd and Suzanne L. Seelig Audience Awards. To vote, you'll just go to the film page on watch.mkefilm.org, either for a feature film that you may have watched or a shorts program. Log in with your pass or your ticket code, and you will be presented with a button that says vote here. You'll just click on that and you'll be sent to a form that will serve as your ballot. You're using the same rating scale as always, where 5 is excellent and 1 is not so excellent. But unlike in the theater with those paper ballots, you will not be tearing. It's very damaging to your computer screens. It really will disrupt the next film that you're about to watch. Just click on those radio buttons or check boxes and then press enter, and we'll count those votes. Voting is very important, both for audience awards as well as that election that's happening next week. So cast your votes now, practice that voting energy, and it means a lot to filmmakers to receive that feedback, and for the winners to receive that feedback in particular. You'll all know by now, it's day 13. You know, we have a double up. A challenge has been issued to Milwaukee Film from Richard Galloon and Judith McGregor to raise $75,000 during this year's festival. If we can do that, they will double it. They will give us $75,000 of their own money to reward us to double that goal. Is a couple ways you can help us out with that. You can text double up, that's all one word, to 44321, as you see scrolling below me, like I'm on QVC. That's one way to give. You can give any amount using that link or that texting function. You can also go to mkefilm.org/donate. If you're already a Milwaukee Film member and you know that your membership's set to renew or expire this month, if you renew that membership, it'll count towards our double up. If you're not yet a member, you could become one, and that money will also get doubled through this. At checkout, if you're buying some tickets or if you're buying gift membership for somebody because you're already a member, but you know that that gift membership is a great gift for somebody in your life because you know you want them to get free films and access to discounts and the happy feeling of being part of the Milwaukee Film member family, and to know that they're supporting our year-round mission. If you want them to have that and you get to that checkout and you see the roundup, that's another way that you can get those dollars doubled. But it only runs through the end of the festival, and it's day 13, and this is a 15-day festival, which means you have until Thursday, not only to finish watching all of the great films you put on your list before the festival, but also to help us reach this goal. As of this morning, we were at 85%. We have slowed down. I did see some great action happening and some members challenging one another in the member group today. So I think we'll probably be a little higher when we check in on it in the morning. But let's close that gap. Let's get us going into the final day done. Then we won't have to keep mentioning it every night. Consider helping us meet that goal. We really couldn't do what we do as a nonprofit without that kind of support from donors and particularly from our members. So I want to say thank you, members. I miss you. I miss chatting with you in the lobby and hearing what you loved. I like seeing it on Facebook too. So please help us spread the word about how fun being a Milwaukee Film member is. This evening, we have 3 films whose filmmaking teams are going to be joining us. First, we will be joined by the director and producer of Personhood, then by 2 directors of short films in our Shorts Let's Get Animated program, Umbilical, which is also in our Genre Queer Experimental Visions shorts program, and then finally the film JESA. So we've got to roll through 3 films here tonight. It'll be a good time. Buckle up, and I'd love to bring on screen with me Joe Ardinger, director of Personhood, and producer Rosalie Miller.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome to Milwaukee. Welcome back to Wisconsin.
Yeah. Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So I want to start with kind of the origin of the film. Where did you start with this project? And sort of, did you start with the larger theme of the film, or did you start with Tammy's story, or something else altogether? Maybe I'll start with Joe.
Yeah, no, I started with the larger theme because I started this film in 2011. And it was because I was watching a segment on Rachel Maddow about this Mississippi Personhood Amendment. And I'd never heard of such a thing. I consider myself pretty knowledgeable and very interested in reproductive rights, but I'd never heard of fetal personhood. And so I was really excited to start my own project. And then I just started researching, and I just couldn't believe the depth of the issue. You know, it was being framed with regards to abortion, but I just kept learning more and more about how women were being criminalized during their pregnancies, women who had no intention of ending their pregnancies. And so it was later that I learned about Tammy's story, and I think it was just such a compelling story. So she really is the heart of the film.
Yeah. How did you find her story? Like, is that just stumbling upon her in research, or were there people who kind of connected you to her?
Yeah, I was connected to Tammy through National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and they're an organization based out of New York, and they help represent women across the country like Tammy who've been swept up in these laws across the country. And so it was a matter of connecting with Tammy and having her be confident that we could tell her story the right way, and that we were like-minded with our goals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Rosalie, when did you get involved, and why? Like, what motivated you to want to help make this film come to life?
Yeah. I got involved in 2013. So Joe had been filming and working on this film for a little bit. And, you know, it's interesting, when I did get involved with the film, we hadn't really known each other that long. And so here we are, we're still talking, and we love each other very much. And, you know, we've been together for a really long time, working on this. But she was actually the one that introduced me to the fetal personhood movement and fetal personhood and the legislation. And I had no idea what that was. And I'll never forget, she shared with me a 10-minute piece that she had edited together. And I was just really drawn into that. And I was really hooked. And what was so unique about her point of view is that it was really outside of this binary lens regarding choice versus anti-choice. So it was a very different kind of reframing that debate. And from a storytelling standpoint, and, you know, just saying that, I guess, with my producer hat on, but also with my filmmaker hat on, I really wanted to be a part of that, because I felt like this was a part of that issue that a lot of people didn't really know very much about.
Yeah.
So
I want to go back a little bit to Tammy and sort of getting her kind of on board, right? This is like super vulnerable, right? She is so vulnerable on screen and in these moments. Like, how do you think you were able, because, you know, she's not here to tell us how you did this, but like, how do you think you were able to kind of gain that trust? And were there moments where, you know, you had to kind of navigate around that, where maybe she, like, you know, sort of pulled back, or was harder to sort of, you know, engage in as vulnerable ways as we see sometimes in the film?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, her trust in institutions was decimated, you know, by this experience, whether it's the medical field or the, you know, the justice system. And so I just give her so much credit for being so open. And we just had this very long conversation on the phone, and, you know, her main driving thing was, I don't want this to happen to any other woman in Wisconsin or anywhere, you know, wherever this is existing.
Yeah.
And she just wanted to really, she asked me very pointed questions about how we would approach it and everything. And she just trusted us. And, you know, the first time we met was the first time we filmed. And, you know, Harmonious was a little tiny infant.
Tiny.
She was nursing in between interviews. I mean,
he was 3 months. Yeah, 3 months old.
He's
at that.
tiny.
Yeah, really, really tiny.
I just give her credit, you know, because she opened her heart and was so vulnerable because it was so recent. It had just happened. And it's just a credit to her wanting to take part in helping other women not go through this, you know? Yeah. And we're at the beginning of that whole stage right now.
Yeah. It sounds like I mean, because you worked on this film for so long before sort of, you know, even finding sort of the heart of it and then sort of continuing on, I'm wondering if there were moments that were surprising. You set out with a pretty particular goal of like wanting to really explore this issue. Are there things that were surprising or revelations or learnings that, I guess I'll ask this of both of you, moments that were sort of that stand out for you, either in the course of filming or in editing, or even in sort of putting it out into the world?
All of it.
Yeah, all of it. You go first, Rose.
Oh God. I mean, I don't know if it was a surprise per se, but I think it was just a little naivety, like on my part as a producer, because I had never produced something of this scale. And, you know, women filmmakers, non-binary filmmakers, there are a lot of hurdles already in our industry. And then when you have women at the helm that are producing something that may be seen as controversial, you know, the funding aspect was really, like I said, not surprising, right? That there are all these hurdles, but it was excruciatingly, can I say that? It was excruciatingly challenging to just get the financing that we really needed to be able to complete the film. And that was part of the big obstacle for us as a whole in terms of why it took us so long to actually finish the film, which was in 2019 before, you know, and then we premiered at Doc NYC last fall. So I think just not really having an understanding of just the amount of time that it can take when you are adventuring into, I think, your first kind of larger scale project that's really tackling very complex and complicated issues. You know, and I learned a lot from Joe and just the women that were in the film, even how to really talk about the issue and, you know, how the language is evolving, because this issue is evolving politically, culturally. So I don't know. I feel like I could go on and on, but really that big hurdle of just trying to get a film like this financed and to get it completed is really very challenging. Joe.
Well, I guess for me, I think it's more about the issue and just the depth of the disconnect or the cognitive dissonance of this issue. People who purport to be caring about the fetus would at the same time have a mother who's health compromised in a very dangerous situation like jail. Highly stressful, no access to meds or prenatal care. I mean, that disconnect, you know, you read about it, you feel it, you intellectualize it, but until, you know, I met Tammy and just saw, I mean, I've had 3 kids. When I saw what she went through and I imagined me going through that, the disconnect is enormous. They are so bent on their singular goal that they do not even recognize, as that one gentleman admitted, he says these things aren't true, the ripple effects of their policies and how they flow out into women's lives in huge circles. And we will see that more with this new Supreme Court justice, because she believes that life starts at conception, and that is something that is incompatible with the legal personhood of women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to be heavy, but it's a fraught time right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably, well, I want to sort of like maybe dig into sort of the updates in a moment. I also had wanted to ask about challenges of getting funded. So you've already teed up so many of my questions.
We just went straight.
Yeah,
down
you're just like, here are the things. I mean, I think, in addition, I was talking to Maria Finizzo, the director of Dilemma of Desire. She spoke to a similar sort of a challenge of like funding that is about a film that purports maybe to be kind of, oh, here's this issue, but really, I think, it's feeling like the issue might be like it's hard to get things funded that are about the already underfunded in terms of like just telling women's stories, which is very frustrating to hear in the 21st century, but unsurprising perhaps. I think also because it's sort of like, okay, this is an issue film, but it's not like a clear like, okay, well, so we'll go to these issue funders because it is so the fetal personhood is so much murkier and complicated and like unseen and underexplored, which is why of course you need a film about it. But to sort of go to like, who do you go to like help you get that story, sort of the first of it kind of told. So I hear you there. Can we talk about that timeline? So you started thinking about this film in 2011, and you faced a number of production hurdles. In 2015, we took some of our board to the Seattle International Film Festival, and you were on a panel, and like one of our board members kept asking me about your film, and I was like, it's not done yet. I can't show it to you and it's not done. Can you talk a little bit about sort of that production timeline and just sort of like where there were maybe like moments of acceleration and then the frustrating moments of kind of stasis?
Yeah, I mean, that is something that kind of follows you. And we were on a roll there for a while. We had raised some money and we had many shoots, and we went to 7 states, for this film. So we had several shoots in a row and things felt really busy. And then there was how do we handle post-production here? And we kind of found the natural end of Tammy's story in 2017. And so it was after that, we went into high gear with a crowdfunding campaign, and then went through post. But it's hard, you get frustrated and then you have to put your energy into other projects to help pay the bills, and it's a lot. Yeah.
It's a very unsustainable path. And, it's interesting. We're all having these conversations on like even a deeper, more, what's the word? Just excessive level with COVID happening.
Yeah.
So talk about, something that's already quite unsustainable. And then you throw that in the mix and, and that's kind of what we're talking about right now, to really complete a film that again is independently produced, and then once you complete the film, Joe and I have been on the festival circuit now, and we started our outreach and impact campaign very recently at the beginning of fall this year on the impact campaign, but we've been on the festival circuit now for about a year. And that in and of itself, I mean, COVID has really shifted obviously how we are showing up, with the film and how we're engaging with our audiences and stuff. But before COVID, I mean, we were on planes constantly and we were showing up to the film festivals because it's so critical and it's so important to get the word out and to be there and to like give a face as well. And that in and of itself could also be a full-time job, so once you complete the film. So just to kind of give you a little bit, a little information just in terms of how long we've been with it, I guess, on the distribution side of things. And we feel like we've just started. So it's like, yeah, it's sort of ramping up, you know, and for each phase. And then you're kind of exhausted at the end of that phase. And then, you know, it's like we take a little bit of a break, like a tiny rest. And then we, you know, and then it's like you gear up again and you go.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Of ramping up.
Years of ramping up. And like, yeah. How do you get yourself to like the okay, I don't have to like keep my foot on the gas, but I can mostly keep moving forward. That
It's interesting because we are just starting right now something that's so exciting, which is our Wisconsin Impact campaign. And so that's going to be a series of screening that's going to happen. So we're actually not we're actually pressing, you know, because it's so important. We've teamed up with Repro Action and National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and we're going to be doing these screenings to help raise awareness. Because, you know, as you heard in the film, the Wisconsin attorney had never heard of this law. You know, we've had judges in our audiences who haven't heard of this law. And so we want to spread the word as far and wide in Wisconsin that we can, and help build up a pressure campaign to just say enough of this. Because that law is still vacated. You know, it still isn't, they shouldn't be applying it, but they are, right? So we just have to, you know, raise the awareness.
What does that impact campaign look like? What is it? Is it screenings in communities, screenings with schools, all of the above? Tell us a little bit more, particularly so our audience can kind of point people to it if they don't watch the film in the next 2 days during the Milwaukee Film Festival.
It will be all of the above. You know, we will have targeted screenings towards the legal profession, medical professionals. There will be community screenings, and you can find that information with through Repro Action. They have someone on the ground there, or National Advocates, or our website will be putting that up too. And yeah, this will be happening over the course of the next several months. So we are having our first panel discussion coming up this week. So it's exciting.
Yeah, in fact, the ACLU of Montana had a screening of the film yesterday, and Joe, you took part in a panel the other week at the Take Root conference that was held in Kentucky. So it's a reproductive justice conference. Yeah, I mean, we're already, I don't know, I just feel like we have so much stuff on the calendar. And then, you know, obviously we're focused on educational institutions and that educational component too. And then we don't know the timing yet, but the film is actually going to be released widely early in 2021. Digitally, we just don't know what that looks like yet, because it really depends on what happens with the elections, and then also our distributor. And there's just a lot of factors that like we don't have complete control over, but I'm so excited that it's going to be available widely, finally, so that anyone can watch the film. Yeah.
Let's talk updates, since you've covered the response. It's like you are reading my notes. I have a million notes and questions. I'm like, we did that. But can we talk about updates? What's happening with Tammy since the film wrapped? And then where are there not maybe sort of laws nationally that are making positive or negative kinds of changes?
Yeah, Tammy is doing great with her family, and Harmonious is in school, and he is incredibly bright, and I almost call him like a lyrical kid. He's just like a little musical, you know, persona, I guess I would say. But they're doing great. But, you know, it's still not over, because that distrust, you know, she navigates her own health issues. There is still this medical distrust. And I think that's going to take a really long time to try to gain that back. But they are doing great as a family, and we stay in touch, and that's exciting. And yeah, and then, you know, we don't know what we're about to face here. it's like states are poised, they're getting ready. There are some states that are planning for the eventuality of Roe being overturned. There are others that are protecting women in that way. So you have these people's rights will depend on where they live geographically, which is a shame. But I just wanted to quickly say, Rosalie had mentioned this Take Root conference. What's so exciting about that? That is reproductive justice in red states. Okay, so there are many people who identify as pro-life. They would never choose abortion care for themselves, but they are getting behind the movement against these laws because of how they affect pregnant women. And so we're trying to spread the word that way too, because I think there's consensus there. There are women don't want this happening to themselves or to people they love.
Right. Yeah. They don't want to be faced with two bad choices.
Yes, and there's a very famous case in Florida, a woman who had 6 children, and she was very identified as very pro-life, and she was taken in. She was shackled to a gurney as they took her to the hospital, to force her to have a C-section against her will. And so this can happen to anybody. And so, we just have to, I think people have to actually check in with their states and see how these laws are being applied, and where they exist.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I saw the other day, it was, I forget whose campaign it was, but it was, a paid by whoever candidate commercial. And it was talking about Barrett and the possibility of IVF being banned, or, people that are going through that process potentially being criminalized, or the providers being criminalized. And that language was used in that commercial. And I thought that was very interesting and very telling, just in regards to how, again, like I said earlier, this very binary lens that surrounds the abortion debate, with this recent confirmation of Barrett, I wonder how the language is going to start to shift, like in the zeitgeist, and that's something that Joe and I talk a lot about too, and hope that this film will also do, is help reframe that conversation around abortion. That there are these consequences for pregnant people that have no intentions of ending their pregnancies. So it is like a very gray area, but I just wanted to bring that up as one example. And I think we're going to start to see a lot more of that in the mainstream. In fact, when Joe and I started working on this, people were saying, well, I don't want to say people, but several people that we had mentioned the film to, as we're making it, had said, wow, that is just like, that's so fringe. And I don't I've never heard of that. And I don't understand, basically, why are you making this film? And so here we are, in 2020, and we've seen this, this evolution happen over the last just, couple of years. But what was seen as fringe just 5 years ago is very much becoming centered in the mainstream more and more. So I think that there's a lot more to come there, but
yeah,
that was a long answer.
A thorough answer. People always tell me I'm thorough. I'm like, thank you.
Yeah, I get that too.
It's you don't want to cut things shorter than they need to be when they're more complicated. All good. We talked a little bit about what's next for the film, sort of lots more, both in Wisconsin and sort of nationwide, and particularly sort of outreach, and then sort of a release that we will all stay tuned for. Until when something is defined, we will keep an eye out for it. Are you, other than continuing to shepherd this project through its, kindergarten years, elementary school years, the film is going to go to middle school soon. It'll be great. What are you working on, new projects, stuff that we can kind of keep an eye out for, that's also keeping you busy?
in terms of jumping into a new film that I'll be directing, I'm still thinking about a couple different ideas, but I am editing a very beautiful film. It's an Indigenous story, and it's exciting. I'm excited. It'll be coming out next year. It's a beautiful, beautiful story for the time.
I have been working on another documentary for the last few years, and I had a baby a couple years ago. And again, that was like during the height of fundraising and finishing this film. And then I was working on that one. So it's one that I'm directing. And yeah, I hope that that is complete next year, but that's heavily in post right now. And I have a small team helping me. And oh, I guess I should tell you what it's about. It's really a portrait piece. It's a local story about a queer femme drag performance artist named Jodie Keener, and about her work. But I mean, it's so much more than just her work. And, you know, it's interesting. I've been talking with her during the pandemic. And so we're starting to kind of fold pieces of that into the story, and just how it's really impacted, you know, her life as a working artist and as a performer that needs an audience in person. And so I think a lot of artists are going through very similar things right now. So yeah.
Yeah. Although I will have to say, you know, drag has pivoted. There's that word we're going to keep using, admirably. But, you know, it's a constraint for sure. But so we will keep our eyes open for all of those projects, and we wish you luck. And we thank you for this film, this labor of love, an ongoing labor of love, and for your time this evening.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And I'm going to invite to the screen our genre queer coordinator, Aster Gilbert. Hey, Aster.
Hi, Kara. Thanks for that wonderful conversation. And if you haven't seen Personhood, I do highly recommend it. It's both an incredible film and very urgent. Bumped my computer. Now we're going to talk to the filmmaker of the film Umbilical, which is a short film that you can find in 2 separate programs. Let's Get Animated, as well as the Genre Queer Experimental Shorts. So please join me in virtually welcoming the writer and director of the film Umbilical, Danski Tang.
Hi.
Hi, Danski. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
To get started, I would really love to hear what the inspiration for this film was. How did this project get started?
I think it's because I was always trying to run away from home, and so the furthest I've ran is the America, like very far away from China, and I starting to think about the past, ironically, for some reason, more than before, and so and I starting to think what was that period of time when I was in this boarding school. I never thought about what happened there. And also I was doing a feminism project, and I did a lot of research on domestic abuse, and thought about my mom as a really interesting subject. And so then I decided to combine this boarding school experience and my mom's experience.
Interesting. And so for people in the audience that haven't watched the film yet, just to describe it really quick, it's essentially a documentary interview, right, with your mother that is then animated.
Yeah,
correct?
it's I would say it's animated documentary.
Perfect. And so that brings me to the question I wanted to ask is what does animation bring to that kind of documentary that's, say, like using photographs or filmed interviews? Like what were you able to do with animation that you wouldn't be able to do in, like, say, a more traditional documentary approach?
Because I think I'm really into using real surrealism images when the content, the audio is so intense and violent, and so I think it can counterbalance it. At the same time, when your eyes look at something so far away and your ear hears something that's such a reality, and your brain kind of start to try to make sense between those, and so there will be a vast space in between for the audience to think or relate to the film. Just basically, I like the space for the people who watch the film.
That's really interesting that you say that, because I've watched the film several times. I love it. It's one of my favorites in the festival. But it's heavy. Like, the material is very heavy, but I didn't think about how the animation, it did kind of give me space to process it in a way that, say, if it was just a up close interview with a person telling that story, I don't know that I would have had that space. So that's very interesting to hear that.
Yeah, I think it would be a very different experience if it's an interview filmed person talking.
Definitely. How was it working with your mother? Was she on board with the project? Did it take some convincing, or what was that process like?
No, I mean, it's very relaxed actually. I just told her I'm making this film, and do you want to talk about things? Because me and my mom is very close, and so we chat, and it was a little cringy during the conversation, but surprisingly, I mean, she's a very open-minded mom, I would say. So it's nice. Yeah.
And has she seen the film?
Yeah, she has. It was great because she visited me in LA, and she was just saying like, "Oh, my whole life was just a teacher at the school, and I didn't never feel like I achieved, like not like a successful achievement life." And so we watched the film together, and she said the first thing she said when she heard her voice, she's like, "Oh, that's my voice." And then I said, "Yeah, your voice is gonna be heard by thousands of people." And I think that's very amazing.
That is, and I feel like that's such a mom thing to think that their life isn't this very complex, dynamic story that can be told.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of want to dig into some of the process. Did you have a lot of interview audio to work with? Because the film itself is very short. So was there a lot of material that you had to kind of decide what you were going to animate, or how did you do? What was the process like, deciding what to include?
Mhm. Um, because the audio was about an hour and 40 minutes, and I cut it down to about 7 minutes. And well, I guess I know what I want to, because this is also kind of like a therapeutic process for me. I mean, this film didn't solve any problem in my life, but it is a starting point for me to start thinking about all these issues and things. So I know what I want to get into. So I ask those questions, and I edit a lot of banter. Um, so I kept what I think is interesting and what I want to know.
Interesting. And so, like, an hour and 40 minutes, you almost have 2 hours of interview. Have you, will you make other films from that interview, or is this project kind of you're done with that material and now it's time for something else?
I'm very done with it. But sometimes when I chat with my mom, and I feel like there are interesting things from, ooh, love your cat.
Sorry, this is Beef. He would like to join.
Oh, I love it.
Sorry.
No, I love cats. Yeah. So I think maybe later on we will have conversations about like education, because she is a teacher and I'm a student in America. So maybe a different film, but not from that one. Yeah.
I understand. How long did the animation take to do? Was that a lengthy process? Because it's a very gorgeous animation style, and it flows almost like water, I guess is the way I would describe it. How long did it take you to animate the film?
It took me a long time. I can't say, maybe I don't know, like 6 months or more. yeah. It's hard to say. I'd never count. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I would love to know, did you have any specific animation like inspiration that you were drawing from? Like where does that style come from that you've developed?
Mhm. I always do digital 2D animation, and but before what I did, my animation is always very fluid and have a lot of transformation. But this time I was thinking I'm really sick of the fast-paced speed, and I think if we're gonna be playing with speed, so I want to play it slow this time. I animate less shot than my previous film, which is coming, but there are more frames in each shot because I want it to be very slow, basically. Um, and for the watercolor part is that I want to put something more than just digital 2D animation in it. I want something to be more physically, the texture. I would like to try different things, so I added those in there, and I think I like the contrast between imaginary images from the the digital animation and like a very real material. Yeah.
Hmm. Interesting. I don't know a whole lot about animation, so that's very fascinating to me. So I did already ask kind of how your mother felt about the film, but what has the larger reception for the film been? Because this played at Outfest, which is quite a big festival, which is where I saw it. You're playing here in Milwaukee. What have people thought about the film? How have they responded to you about it?
Mm, I think the most profound thing for me is that so many people come out watching the film and tell me that you really said what I wanted to say, exactly like what I'm trying to say, but they probably don't have the filmmaking. I don't know. They don't have the opportunity to have a conversation with their parents um, or the tool to speak. Yeah. So
Hmm.
I think that's great.
That is. What is next for the film? Do you have more festivals that you're playing, or yeah, what's next for Umbilical?
I'm thinking about, because it's almost the end of festival run. I think I'm happy about what this film have achieved. Like it won Locarno and won like AFI or whatever. And so I'm thinking to release it online, looking for platforms. Yeah, but COVID, so I'm kind of slow.
Yeah, that's kind of thrown a wrench in everybody's plans.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Well, I'm really glad it was still on the festival circuit so that we could show it to our audience.
Yeah, that's great. I
So,
appreciate it.
oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, don't worry.
Um, so then, what's next for you? Are there other projects that you're working on that you can tell us about?
Yes, trying to develop a film about a lesbian who's living in a very repressive Muslim country, and herself is also a Muslim. Uh, so I interviewed her. I have the audio, and she's trying to have baby now, but you are not able to have baby in that country without a husband. But she's gay, so yeah, I thought it's a really interesting process to talk to her and know her. So I want to make that film.
So is this the next one is another like documentary interview that you will then be animating?
Yes, that's what I think, but I think it will be pretty different from Umbilical because I do want to develop it to a different thing. I just get bored too easily, so I would like to add more maybe history, culture, or different visual. Yeah.
Will that still be a short, or are you looking at a feature-length production?
I mean, feature would be great, but I think I don't have the ability to do features, so I'm just gonna do a short first. Yeah.
Perfect.
Mhm.
I can't wait to see it. I I hope we're able to bring you back either virtually or in person to
Hopefully in
Milwaukee.
person.
Yeah, definitely. You're missing out on the great cheese here in Milwaukee. So I guess before we kind of wrap up, is there places people can support your work online, or we just have to wait and see for the next film to come out?
Oh, you mean where my film is going to be screen rated? Or you mean what? Sorry, what?
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just asking if you have like an online presence, for your films that people
I have
can see.
everything. I have all of the social media. Instagram. My Instagram is RANSDI, and I have Vimeo page, website, and just Google Danski Tang. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I think we're about to wrap on that. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
And I love your film. And everyone out there in the audience, please check out Umbilical.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Danski. Really appreciate it. Okay, now I'd like to hand it over to myself again. Gotcha. You're stuck with me. Now we're going to talk to the filmmaker of another short film that is also in the Let's Get Animated program. The film is called JESA. And now we're going to welcome the writer and director of that short film, Keon Wong Song.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Good, good.
Thank you for joining us. I know it's early where you're at, right?
Yeah.
So to get started, what was the inspiration for this film? How did this project get started?
My inspiration for this film was like anger. so like this ritual ceremony called JESA happening like every New Year's or Koreans like a middle like autumn festivals, and then and when I'm planning this my film, like there was a huge like a family drama happened in my family regarding the ceremony, so I was so angry about this. So I thought, okay, maybe I should really talk about this. Like that kind of like angry and frustration like made me to make this film.
That makes me think of in just the recent conversation that I had with Danski. She was talking about how part of the filmmaking process was kind of therapeutic because there was such a personal relationship to very specific kind of traumatic events. Do you find the filmmaking process to be therapeutic for you, or do you have a different approach to those feelings?
Okay, I think my experience wasn't. It's a little bit different with the therapeutic. I think it was more like reclaiming the gender, like the culture, and then tradition as a female. I think so. Like that the tradition is. I think some tradition is kind of really like a male oriented, and then the family drama happened in my family. It was only discussed by the male like a member in my family, and then me and my sisters and my mom wasn't have a chance to discuss about it. And then I was really angry, and then it was kind of my rebellious like a resistance about that kind of thing. And then so like when I'm making when I'm planning this film, so I thought maybe I can I want to criticize and I want to talk about something like a toxic tradition, but when I'm making it, I'm following all I'm the film itself, it became the that kind of the ritual itself. I'm redoing it, that ritual. So I feel like I'm reclaiming my power as a female in the culture. Yeah.
Doesn't
make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it totally does. And it actually, hearing you say that really changes some of the questions that I had. And because I'm now rethinking about the film through this lens of anger and frustration, which, it's definitely there. And because in the film you talk about the patriarchal rituals, and it's a patriarch that runs this. And so I did want to ask, the way that you animate the food in the film is right after there's this, I think it's the father in the film, someone is saying you don't get to touch the food, you don't get to eat it. But then the animation is like fascinating, but almost seemed kind of violent in the way that like the food is tore up. And I was really curious what why did you animate the food in that way? And is that like an expression of that kind of anger, or maybe I'm misreading it altogether?
No, true. Like, so actually, at the first, my intention of this film was like a fully animated. So my father's part, I was like planning like a 2D animation, you know, like with the picture, like a legit picture of the information of the like a table, and then like I'm just like following what my dad's, and then sometime I'm just like not following my like a dad's direction, making that kind of like a chaos, something like that. And then like my mom's part, I was planning to, you know, like kind of erase like a woman body in the tradition, you know, like a stop motion. When you're taking the photo, you're being selective, and then I was kind like selective, like intentionally erasing human body and then the labor of the human, like a woman in that tradition. Yeah. It's interesting that like you mentioned that it looks violence, like because I like try to show kind of overwhelming the labor, and then like a amount of the like labor, and then like kind of unnecessarily like too fancy food that requires for the ritual. Yeah. Yeah, sorry.
No.
Yeah.
So I guess building off that, was there with like you talked about your frustration and your relationship to this ritual, was there any pressure that you felt around filming a ritual, like messing it up or making people mad that you were doing it? Did that ever enter into your process?
Oh my god, yeah, I was so afraid if I, you know, like offend my father. You know, like I'm making fun of him. Actually, the event that I like, the family drama that happened in my family, it wasn't related to my father. It's more like other members of my like male members. So I was just using my father because I didn't want to directly, you know, like saying that drama. So I was making fun of my dad. So I was really feel bad, and then, you know, like I'm just criticizing the patriarchy like traditions through my dad. So I was really worried about it, and then I didn't show my dad like while I'm making the film, and then he watched it, and but like the thing is, like he really liked the film. He really enjoyed, like he's getting attention in the theater because, you know, like because everyone was like laughing like what like whenever my dad sang in the film, and then everyone's clapping like when like I see my dad, like audience really like my dad, and then he was like, okay, whatever, like I enjoyed it, like, oh yeah, come on, you did good job, yeah. Yeah, that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's great. And that, I mean, you answered a question that I was going to ask, which was, has your family seen the film, and what did they think? Because the ending, I was laughing out loud where, for people that haven't seen it, your dad is reading, like describing this ritual, and then you cut in, you're like, okay, that's enough. Like that's enough. And he's like, he just keeps talking.
He didn't care. You know, because it was, at the time I was in US and he was in Korea, so we interviewed through the Skype. So you know, like when you talk through the Skype, interviews through the Skype, like it's kind of hard to cut into during the conversation, and then it was just like really like to like talk about the tradition to myself. So it was really that happened because it was through the Skype interview.
Yeah. Oh, it's really funny. I guess
Thank
so.
you.
Building off that, you'd mentioned like audiences that have seen it have like laughed and clapped. How has the reception of the film been? Has it mostly been that positive, laughing, clapping reception to the film?
Yeah. So everyone really like, yeah, I want to make something like I want to make funny film because even though it's from the heavy topic, I didn't want to make like, something really like seriously criticizing the tradition and then culture. I want to make I just want to break that the solemn like that kind, like a legit tradition just with the humor. I think that's more powerful. So I really, so and then people really like that, like people laughed a lot during the screening, and then everyone from the other culture came to me and then they told me that they can relate it to their own culture, like for American, like during the like, like what's that? Oh, sorry, I forgot. The Thanksgiving, like some grandma, like they say, oh yeah, my grandma always said like this spoon and then this fork have to be here, like that. Yeah. So yeah, that was really interesting for me. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Thanksgiving's coming up, and that's where some of the biggest family fights happen.
Yeah. Every time. Right? Like it's supposed to be like a family bonding time, but like everyone fight for, I don't know, like a role in their family, money, and then something not really, serious.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, I know.
I really like hearing. I would love to hear some more about your thoughts on like humor, and so like you were saying that like rather than making these serious like films about how these things are bad, you're using humor to illustrate kind of how they're like maybe silly or ridiculous or frustrating. Is that so humor is kind of the register that you'll work in for future films as well?
I don't know, like for future film, I want to keep that kind of sentiment, but I think it's really up to the like subject, because this was like story about my family, so it was okay, like using like my dad and then my mom as like a funny kind of material, as a human material. But I don't know if I'm like like talking about someone's story. I don't know if it would be okay to use a humor as a like a film material. So I think that's really like a complicated like issue. Yeah, actually, like I don't know, I'm planning like making, like it's not like concrete plan or something. I really want to talk about like a female in Korea, some like a marginalized like immigrant, like a woman from other country to Korea or something. So I don't know, and in that case I'm not sure if I can use like a humor as a like a strategy or something. Yeah, that's, I think I'm still like thinking about it, but I really enjoy like like using humor in this film, because like animation is really long like process. So like as a filmmaker, I really want to enjoy the process. I wanted to make something funny. Yeah.
I think that's a great approach to have to filmmaking.
Thank you.
So I guess before we run out of time, you kind of started this answering this question, but I did want to ask, what is next for you? What's next for the film, JESA? And do you have any other projects that you've begun working on other than the one that you just mentioned? And if not, that's cool too.
Actually, I just moved back to Seoul from LA, so I'm still looking for like some like filmmaking community for myself. So I have no like clear plan for my future film like a future project. And my film JESA is still it's gonna still on the like a film festival circuit in Europe and US. So I think you can probably update the information through my Instagram or something. Yeah.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Well, with that, we're about at time. So I'm going to thank you so much. I look forward to the next project.
Thank you.
I hope to see you again back in Milwaukee, either
Mhm.
virtually or maybe in person next time. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us about your really incredible and funny film, JESA.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
Mhm.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. That wraps up this installation of the Nightcap. Just a reminder, if you haven't already, do consider giving to the Double Up campaign that Kara mentioned at the beginning of this event. And with that, I will say have a great night or morning if you're watching this the next day. Bye.